So in pre-algebra, we started absolute values, right? You guys should all know what is special about an absolute value. What's special about absolute value? It always becomes, inside the bars is always what? Positive. Okay, so now we're going to be getting equations that we want to solve that have absolute values in them. So the first step is to get the absolute value by itself. So you're going to get the absolute value by itself first. And then this is the most important part, okay? We need to take the inside of the absolute value, just the inside part, so we take those absolute value bars down, and set it equal to the positive and negative of the other side of the equation. So we set it equal to both the positive and negative of the other side. Okay? And then we'll be able to solve for the variable in both equations, because we're going to have two equations. One is equal to positive and one is equal to negative. Why do I set it equal to both the positive and negative? Let's think about it. If I'm taking the absolute value of 6, what's the answer? 6. What if I'm taking the absolute value of negative 6? What's the answer there? Positive 6. Okay, so what would happen if I don't tell you what's inside that absolute value, and I just tell you the absolute value of x is equal to 6? What could be I plugged for x? 6 and negative 6, which is why we always set it equal to both positive and negative. Does that make sense? Because the inside could be positive, but it could also be negative and still get the same answer. Okay, so example number 1. We have absolute value of y equals 4. So is the first question we need to ask ourselves is the absolute value by itself? Yes. So we can take down the bars and just have the inside of the absolute value y equal to the positive 4 and y equals negative 4. And then solve for the variable. In this case, we've solved already, right? So y equals positive 4, negative 4. Now that's the easiest kind. But we're going to use pretty much the same idea. Okay? So look at example 2. We have absolute value of n plus 2 equals 8. Is absolute value by itself yet? No. What do we need to do then? Good. Subtract 2 first. So that gives me absolute value of n is equal to 6. Is absolute value by itself now? Yeah, so I can set it equal to both positive and negative. So the inside is n is equal to positive 6 and n is equal to negative 6. I've solved for the variable, right? So n equals positive 6, negative 6. Okay, so far so good? Okay, what happens if there's a number on the outside of the absolute value? How would I get rid of that? Divide by 4. Good. So we want to divide both sides by 4. Please do not try to use distributive property. Absolute value bars are not the same thing as parentheses. Okay, so you cannot distribute the 4 in. Got it? Yeah. Do not do it. Okay? So that gives me absolute value of d is equal to 5. Absolute value is by itself now, so we set the inside equal to positive 5 and negative 5. And in this case, we're done. So d equals 5 and negative 5. Does the positive argument go for the negative? It doesn't matter. No, it doesn't matter. Okay. So now example 4, we have kind of a two-step one. What do I need to do first to get the absolute value by itself? Add 4 to both sides. So we're first going to add 4. So that gives me 20 equals 5, absolute value of p, and then I divide by 5. Good. So absolute value of p equals 4. Absolute value is by itself, so we set the inside equal to positive and negative 4, so p is equal to positive 4, and negative 4. Everybody good so far? Yep. Yep. Okay, so what about something like example 5? First question I need to ask myself, is the absolute value by itself?
Yeah.
It is, right? Just because there's stuff inside, that doesn't mean the absolute value is not by itself, right? We don't want anything being added, subtracted, multiplied, or divided by the whole absolute value. So the absolute value is by itself. So we can take the inside, c plus 2, and set it equal to positive 6 and negative 6. So c plus 2 equals positive 6. C plus 2 equals negative 6. How do I solve for c? On the left-hand side, we're going to subtract 2. So c equals 4. On the right-hand side, I'm also going to subtract 2, but this time it gives me c equals negative 8. So my two answers this time are 4, negative 8. How could I check that my answers are correct? Plug it back in. So last one. What do I do first here? I divide by negative 3. Okay, so I divide both sides by negative 3. That gives me absolute value y minus 3 equals negative 3. Hold on a second. Can I ever take the absolute value of something and get a negative number? No. So if the absolute value is all by itself and is equal to a negative number, no solution. Inside the absolute value? Inside the absolute value is okay. It's if the whole thing is equal to a negative. And it's only after you get the absolute value by itself. Because what if I had the exact same thing equal to negative 9? After I divide both sides by negative 3, it makes it positive 9, right? So it would be okay. So get the absolute value by itself first, and then if it's equal to a negative, no solution. You can stop. Okay?